Adequate notice as required by the Open Public Meetings Act was provided on December the 6th, 2023 by posting the notice to the respective clerks of the city of Lambertville, Borough of Stockton, and Township of West Stanwell, and advertised in the Hunterdon County Democrat and the Trenton Times newspaper. Before we stand for the flag salute, it is the week of Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving is Thursday. I felt like I just wanted to take a moment to say, I was getting ready for this meeting, how thankful I am. We have amazing teachers. We have incredible support staff. We have dedicated administrators, and we have a fantastic community here of people who are supportive and interested in education. There's a lot of things for us to be thankful for. So I'm expressing my thanks on this Thanksgiving week. Now, let's stand for the flag salute.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Jennifer Batchelor,
Here.
Martha Dennis,
Here.
Gina Pichetti, Brian Keys,
Here.
Kevin Kowaleski, Aaron O'Leary,
Here.
Michael Strauss, here, Ronnie Todd Marino,
Here.
Jim Gallagher.
Present. Next, we will have our report of the student representative to the board. Lucas, take it away.
Hello, good evening. Okay, so first our sports for our fall sports. We've received our honors for our football for our BCC All Division Silver Freedom. First, our first team goes to Thomas Brewer, Ed Cooper, and Ty Dunn, and our second team goes to Nate Lawton and Parker Rampell. For our girls soccer in the Skyland Conference All Conference team, first team goes to Lucy Spreen, second team to Olivia Nemeth, and honorable mention to Maggie Woodside. For boys soccer, our first team is Oliver Haran, Connor Keys, and Eduardo Lavareda. Second team is Anthony Torres and Alex De Leon, and our honorable mention is Aaron Parisi. For field hockey, first team goes to Annika Baylog and Addison Policord. Second team goes to Julia Stoff, Junabe Horsnell, and Isabella Worsnick. And honorable mention goes to Catalina Weiland. Our winter sports are now in session and are started processed. Bowling, we had our first two practices today and tomorrow. Boys and girls basketball tryouts are all this week. Wrestling starts next week. Our winter track is in process of starting. And this year we have a dance club. Our dance club will be joining us to help cheer on our basketball teams at all our home games. For clubs, Key Club. So the Key Club had one of their field trips today to the Trenton Area Soup Kitchen or Task. So the club helped out plating and serving food to the local Trenton community. And the club has had multiple trips in past years. And we plan on doing more trips this year. For the literary magazine for the Lit Mag is looking for creative students with any artwork, drawings, or paintings, written pieces, visual arts, or performing arts. Anything from music to like paintings and sketches can be submitted to litmag@shrsd.org. For the yearbook is again asking for anybody in the community, from staff, students, parents, and the general public, for any photos from any South events they've taken. This can be selfies to .5s, and they can be of any quality on any camera, from an iPhone camera to a Sony or Canon camera. The Environmental Club. The Environmental Club went on a field trip to Baldpate Mountain this month. Students learned about the environment and the process of preserving natural wildlife and species such as the native plants by helping enclose them and by cutting and taking away more invasive species around the area. Also, South Hunterdon had a blood drive this month with multiple students, staff, and the general public being able to participate and donate blood. Helped a lot of lives, and one person can save up to 3 lives. Students 16 and up were able to donate, but while the local community was able to help too. And for our class of 2025, the senior class had a fundraiser last Friday at Panera Bread. They partnered with them, getting 25% of the proceeds. And another Disney, our Disney payment is coming up next Friday. Final Disney payment. Thank you.
Thank you. Very good. Any questions for the student representative report? Okay, thank you. You can stay or you can go because homework and stuff to do. Thank you very much. For being here. Next up, we'll have PTO and LEF. If anybody's here to give reports for that.
So hi, Megan Sinkus from the LAF. So just to let you know, our 2024 letter writing campaign is under the way. And so obviously that's one of our bigger opportunities for fundraising, where we are getting our community involved and sending letters, thanking our community for all the support they've given us and looking hopefully for continued support as we go through into next year. Within the letter, we're also highlighting a few things new this year. We're kind of having a save the date for our spring fundraiser, which is March 29th. We'll be rolling out something a little new and different. So look forward to that. More information to come there. We'll also be introducing a new fundraising initiative that we're calling 4 Quarters 4 Kids, or 4Q4K. This is where we're looking to engage the community by asking 100 community members to commit $100 once a quarter for a year. And in doing so, and in return, they'll be able to come to a few of our open meetings, as well as meet some of our grant and award recipients and get to see like where their money's going. So that's something we're going to be introducing as we go into 2025. Also, just a few things on grants. We do have 2 grants that we're in review right now. One for a performing arts trip. They're a performing arts trip where the students will be going to a New York Philharmonic and a Broadway play, as well as several developmental construction or developmental classes for the performing arts students. It was a great collaboration of funding between the school, Papa, and LEAP to go ahead and get those guys going on this fantastic opportunity trip. The second grant is for a STEM grant that has come through and we're under review at the moment. So more to come as we look through that. That's it for us.
Thank you. Thank you. I have PTO. Okay.
Just good to be here, so I want to talk. Kids Night Out, November was our biggest kids night out to date. We had 85 kids, and after expenses, we made $1,760. Thank you to all of our volunteers and Miss Ryan. Without them, we would not have been able to have an event that large. Our clothing drive has ended, and we were able to make close to $700 for that. Thank you to everyone who dropped off items. Every bit helps, and thank you to our middle school students who helped load the truck. The PTO donated refreshments and other items to the 7th and the 8th grade dance held a few weeks ago. Thank you to our middle school and high school PTO board for organizing, and thank you to the Bachelor family for lending us their cotton candy machine and staying to run the machine. The holiday shop at the elementary school will run from December 9th to December 13th. The information went home in backpack mail on Friday. All envelopes are to be returned to homeroom teachers by Wednesday, November 27th. If you misplace your envelope, the main office has extra. The pre-K committee will be organizing crafts for the pre-K classes at the middle school on location in lieu of the holiday shop at the middle school. 5th and 6th grade buddies will then help the pre-K kids make special items for their families to go home for the holidays. Please look out for the following fundraising opportunities on the horizon. Shake Shack Dine and Donate in January. Penny Wars, more information to follow on this, but it will be in January. It will be district-wide. Christmas tree fundraiser will take place after the holidays. If you would like to help, please join the committee. And then Giving Tuesday on December 3rd. I'm happy to announce that the PTO and the After School Enrichment Program Committee will continue with the program. Our first committee meeting is Thursday, December 5th in the Media Center at the elementary school. If you'd like to join the committee, please attend the first meeting and we will add you to all future communication. Once the committee meets, we will send out a formal communication to families. The PTO has many other committees that need volunteers. Without our volunteers and the committees that run our events for the PTO, we would not be able to continue helping out as much as we do. Please be on the lookout on Parent Square for the PTO committee signups and sign-up meetings. Thank you so much for your time.
All right. With that, we'll move back correspondence. We do have a letter that was sent to us this past month that is posted online. Anybody can look at it there. So with that, I'm seeking a resolution to approve the minutes of our regular meeting from October the 28th. Moved by Ronnie, thank you. Could I have a second, please? Second by Michael, thank you. Any discussion on those minutes? All in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? Anyone abstain? Okay, with that, we have several presentations. One of them is on the Anti-Bullying Rights Act, which is the HIB program. One of them is on our district student safety data systems report. And then we will have a period of public comment on those two presentations, right? On those two presentations only. Then the superintendent's report, then there'll be an open period of public comment on anything that you want to comment. So with that.
Yeah, all right, so these are annual reports that we typically do in November of each year. The HIV report is basically, we have school safety and climate teams in each one of our buildings that do a self-assessment that we receive from the state of New Jersey. So just to kind of give you, before I get into the slide deck, an indication. So what will happen is they'll meet and they'll go through all these different indicators. And here's an example of one that the HIB policy was discussed with students in accordance with district process for these discussions. And then based on that, there's different criteria that we need to meet. And there's also sample documentation that's included. So based on that criteria, then our school climate and safety teams will complete the self-assessment that you're going to see in front of you with scores for each one of our buildings. So like I had said before, this is done on an annual basis, and then it is submitted to the state. All right, so just looking at the self-assessment. So if you look at about 3/4 of the way down, you'll see grading for the school district will be calculated. So we take basically each school self-assessment, we add up the numbers, we divide by 3, and then we come up with a district number. Our district score was a 72 for 2023-24. A score of 50 indicates that you're meeting all state requirements. So obviously we're well above the 50. As we get into each category that's broken down, you can see that there's 8 different core elements that our school teams self-assess. The first one deals specifically with our HIB programming. So you can see that, you know, the initiatives, you know, how we're implementing different documentation, assessing our HIB programs each and every year. And as I mentioned before, the school safety teams have identified patterns and they take a look at HIVs in each building. And then you can see for each category, there's a possible 15 points. The second category deals with training. So specific training for our staff in the HIV law. When we get into core element 3, we look at some other categories as well. All of our teachers are required to do 2 hours of instruction on suicide prevention every 5 years in a 5-year cycle. They're also required to complete 2 hours of instruction on HIV prevention and the HIV law within a 5-year cycle. We're required to have an anti-bullying specialist. So our anti-bullying specialist is typically a counselor at each one of our buildings. They're required to have training as well. And then we also have members of our school safety team, which includes the HIV specialist, a school administrator, and then some teachers. And then we also spend time each summer with our administrative team looking at trends in the HIV reports that we've had from the year before as we develop programming for the upcoming school year. Element 4 is curriculum and instruction on HIB. So how does it tie to some of the things that we're doing in our curriculum? And then also the state of New Jersey each and every year on the first full week in October has what's called a week of respect. So hopefully for parents in the district, there was a lot of different things that were sent out through Parent Square and posted on our website of different activities that our counseling staff had planned during the week of respect. Something obviously you should be doing all year long, but you know, the state of New Jersey highlights that first week in October. Core element 5, HIB personnel. So as I mentioned before, our principal is required to appoint our HIV specialists. They're on our website. If you look under HIV with their names and contact information. I'm the district anti-bullying coordinator. I meet at least 2 times with our specialists just to kind of review the law, whatever changes might have happened, look at trends from last year, look at assembly programs or different educational programs that have either happened or are coming up for the year to address issues with HIV. And then the school safety teams have to meet at least twice a year at their building level. And that's where they're kind of doing the self-assessment, but also looking at individual HIV reports within their buildings. Core element 6 is the reporting procedure. So making sure that the district is implementing the procedures for reporting OHIV, and that all the reporting, if there is any new information for an HIV, is followed as well and added to the original report. 7 is the investigation. So there's different parameters we have to follow. We have to notify parents, both of the victim and the alleged perpetrator or offender. When there's an HIV, we have to complete the school investigation, which the HIV specialist does within 10 school days, and document a written report. We have to prepare the report and come up with findings based on the HIV law. And then that report, once completed, is forwarded to me within 2 school days. And then eventually a summary of that report is reviewed by the Board of Education in executive session. And then core element 8, again, just making sure that our staff is aware of all the different things as far as the reporting procedures. And then for us, each and every year, we get a grade based on our self-assessment from the NJDOE that we have to post on our website. Again, if you look on the HIV tab on our website, you'll see there's probably the grades from the last 5 or 6 years that are there and show our scores. So then if you look at each building, kind of tally up and kind of see where we landed for each one of our schools. So several years ago, probably about 3 or 4 years ago, the HIV law was changed. And there was an option within the HIV law where you could write into your policy that a principal could do a preliminary determination. In other words, if an HIV came in, they read the report, they could say, doesn't meet the criteria, we're not going to do an investigation, and then things move on. We decided as a board not to do that because we felt like every HIV was important to be investigated. So we did not include that in our board policy. So you'll notice here where it says, did the district permit any preliminary determinations? Our answers were no. And then how many times it's NA, because we do not have that in our board policy. And then just kind of looking at some different resources. So if you're interested, and again, this will get sent out tomorrow morning. This is the first bullet is the Anti-Bullying Bill of Rights, if you want to look at more information about that. Last year, we created the second document, and that's a hyperlink. We would oftentimes get a lot of questions from parents when there was an HIV that was filed, both from parents of maybe the victims and the alleged offenders. What's the process? How long does it take? When am I going to find out the findings? What happens? So this is kind of a Q&A document that's on our website. And what we do is if there is an HIV report, we send it out to all the parties involved, the parents, so they can look at it initially, because I'm sure this document will answer a lot of the different questions that they might have about the process and how we handle that. And then each and every year, and we did this again this past summer, what I do is I take all of our HIV reports for the year, whether they've been confirmed or they're just alleged, but they didn't meet the criteria. We take a look at each and every one. We take a look at the distinguishing characteristic as far as why it triggered an HIV report. What are the trends with that? What does it look like in each one of our buildings? And based on that information, it really does drive programming as far as different curriculum changes, assembly programs, different things that we're going to bring into the district if we see some trends in some different areas. So we do that on an annual basis. So that is the HIV report. And then we're going to transition into the student safety data systems report. And if those have been around a while, it used to be called the violence and vandalism report, but then eventually a couple of years ago, they changed it to the SSDS. So this is a report that I'm doing for the entire 23-24 school year, so last school year, just so everyone's aware of the process. And this is a little bit difficult to see, but when I send it out tomorrow, if you want to look at it. So whenever we have an incident in the school building, and if you look at this form, this is a state form, it's called an SSDS form. We have to fill it out with the state. So if we had a HIV that was alleged, if we had a HIV that was confirmed, if we had damage or vandalism to the property, if we had someone to make a threat, if we had a fight, if we had trespass, whatever it would be, if we have a substance abuse issue, we have to complete this form. We have to put the school information down, the incident date, give a description, and then there's all kinds of different things that we have to fill out, including police notification, victims information, offenders information. And we have to submit this to the state for each incident that occurs. And then for specifically HIB, there's a lot of information on, you know, who the offender was, what their ID number, was there an arrest, was there a suspension, you know, in school, out of school. So pretty much anything that falls under the category of SSDS has to be reported on an annual basis to the state. And then these reports are submitted for documentation. And then again, this is for the HIB. Specifically for HIB, they're gonna ask, what was it, a gesture, written, verbal, physical, electronic communication, and then exactly what was done, you know, in the situation as far as the victim and the offenders. So just looking at our numbers from last year, you're gonna see these different categories: substance offenses, vandalism, violence, weapons, HIB that was reported, and HIB that was confirmed. So that means a report comes forward, our specialists use the criteria of the law and they determine whether or not it fits under as an HIB, or could it be just something that still is not something that we want our students to do. And obviously there's a code of conduct that handles that, but it may not meet the HIB law. So when you look at this, we always want to see the 0 columns and the weapons column, which is good. You will notice the number for substance offenses, and I'm going to talk about that in a second, went up compared to years past, which I'll show was 13, and I'll give a little bit of background on that. The last slide, or the second to last slide here, shows kind of like a continuation over the last 4 years, so you can see our numbers. Obviously 2021 pretty low because we didn't have a lot of students in school full days because of the COVID. But if you look at our numbers, a couple things that I want to point out. We did see a pretty significant increase with the substance offenses compared to last year. But I do want to point out that 4 of the 13 students that were suspected to be under the influence refused the test. So this doesn't have anything to do, if you're familiar with the district, we do have a random drug policy where we do random testing. This is totally separate from this. This is specifically if a student was to be considered to be under the influence or in possession of something that was illegal, we would then test the student. So if a student refuses to get tested, that's an automatic violation of our policy. So we did have 4 out of 13 individuals refuse the test. And something else that I'll point out is that we did have 2 students that were responsible for 5 incidents. So 3 and 2 between the 2 students. So something that obviously we look at, I will tell you that all 13 offenses had to do with marijuana as an offense. Obviously, we know that things, you know, in our world have changed specifically around marijuana, but obviously still illegal for our students. So the vaping is something that we're really focusing on. You know, vaping with nicotine was, you know, something that when vaping first came out, now, you know, THC plays a role in that. So obviously with our administrative staff working through and trying to get an idea if a student is caught vaping in the building or does have vape paraphernalia on them, is it just nicotine? Is there a possibility that they're under the influence of THC and what that looks like? Those are all things that we're kind of navigating. So we just had a program, if you're not aware, with our 7th, 8th, and 9th graders, probably 2 weeks ago. Prevention Resources came in and did a whole assembly program on the dangers of vaping and this whole idea of THC and the different things that, you know, comes into play, because those age groups are the ones we want to target. You look at the research tells you between 7th and 8th grade, it's typically when students make decisions on experimentation and things along those lines. So we definitely want to document or target those grade levels. And then just what we have in place. So, you know, as a district, at least since I've been here and even before, we've always had the philosophy of educating the whole child. So there's a balance between the social emotional learning and the academics. We're fortunate to have wonderful counselors throughout the district. We have a student assistance counselor who deals specifically with substance abuse issues. Obviously, our anti-bullying specialists who are our counselors. We spend a lot of time focusing on restorative practices over the last several years. We have the Hunterdon Safe Schools app. So you'll see there's typically posters that hang around the school. I send it out to the kids all the time. It's an anonymous app where students can report if there's an issue going on that they feel that we need to be aware of, and it's totally anonymous. We have a mental health clinician, which if you recall over the last couple of years, we contracted out. And then this year we actually hired, and they belong to us now. So we know that mental health, challenges for our adolescents is on the rise, has been for many years. And we've added an individual that focuses specifically on some of our more high profile cases of students who need additional support and their families. We're required to have a threat assessment team, which we have. I talked a little bit already about Week of Respect. Violence and Vandalism Awareness Week is also the third week in October, and we do activities around that. And since the beginning of the year, we've already had several programs. We've had an assembly program. Tom Thielen came and we put stuff out, via social media and our news bites, and that targeted our 6th, 7th, and 8th graders, called Be the Change. Camfell Productions did an assembly program about making healthy choices for our K-6 students. We had Healthy Choice Week, October 23rd to the 31st, formerly called Red Ribbon Week, which is all about making healthy choices when it comes to substance abuse. Prevention resources, I mentioned before, was just here with our 7th, 8th, and 9th graders. Did an assembly program called Don't Get Vape. There's links here, so when I send this out, if you want to dig into these programs a little more, you have the ability to do that. And then as one of our board goals and district goals this year, we have an SEL, Social Emotional Learning Committee, that's made up of district-wide representation, really looking at programming K-12, and they'll come back and make recommendations in the spring for implementation in the 25-26 school year. We're really looking to hopefully implement a program with a common language starting in kindergarten all the way up through 12th grade. Right now, we have pockets of different things, but they don't necessarily mesh. Now that we're coming together as a district with our new configuration, we're hoping for next year we can launch something where it's the same message, the same language, the same terminology for when our students start in kindergarten all the way up through 12th grade. Any questions from the board on either one of the presentations before you open it up to public comment for the presentation?
No questions from the board. We will now open a period of public comment. This is a period of public comment just to talk about these two reports, the HIB report and the student data. So student data. Yep. So if you have any questions, the same rules apply as for a normal public comment period. We ask you to keep your comment for about 3 minutes. You may make a statement or ask a question to the board. If we are able to answer it this evening, if you're not able to answer it, we get back to you. So with that public comment period is open. Does anyone have something to like to subject? Okay. Anyone from the community and nothing online. No online questions, so we will close that public hearing. And we will then go to the superintendent.
Yeah. All right, so I kind of wrapped up. I have to do a couple things. I want to do talk about CUSAC a little bit. I'll explain what that is. Give a little update, a preschool update, and then I also want to talk about 5-8 building, kind of where we are there. So for those of you who aren't aware, CUSAC stands for Quality Single Accountability Continuum. It is something that the state of New Jersey oversees, but specifically as far as who comes out on site for the process, it is the county office, county superintendent, county business administrator. We have a education person at the county, and then someone who's also in charge of special education. So this is a long, rigorous process that starts months in advance of when they actually come out. And then when they're on site, they're looking through documents, board minutes, all kinds of different things. And then based on that, we are given a score in 5 different categories, which I'm going to show in a second. And specifically with that, so you can see instruction and program, fiscal management, governance, operations, personnel. In order to pass CUSAC, you must score an 80% in each category. You're going to notice for instruction and program, we scored a 79%. Why did we score a 79%? Specifically for that one, it was based on our spring of 2023 state assessment scores. Obviously, we just did an achievement report on our spring of 2024 state assessment scores, and we saw some significant gains. But In reality, because this visit was done on February 21st, 2024, and for whatever reason, we didn't receive the results until October 2024 from the state, they utilized our spring of 2023 test scores. So that's the reason why we're at 79%. We're not alone in that, which I'll share in a second. All the other categories we passed pretty easily. So because we're at 79%, we are required to do what's called a district improvement plan. But before I talk about that specifically, let me give you some background. So there was a lot of districts, as I said, we're not alone, who didn't make the 80% because during COVID, the state changed the scoring of the way they do QSAC and put a much more heavier emphasis on the state assessment scores than they had in the past. You'll notice there's a link here that says New Jersey is changing how school districts are evaluated. So because of the issues that were caused by this, there were many school districts throughout the state and superintendents who went to the Department of Ed, and they are making changes now and have developed a new criteria that will go in effect for September of 2025. If you click on that link, it will give you a little bit more information. The changes will increase the number of points that dedicated to student growth in math and English language arts, giving growth more weight than achievement. And I will tell you, we've seen significant growth of our students over the last 2 years. So that will help us tremendously. If you're not aware, in 2023, 77% of students across the state did not pass science exam. And we were one of them. I will say in 2024, we scored in all 3 grade levels, 5, 8, and 11, above the state average for the science exam. But again, they're not using the spring of 2024, they're only using the spring of 2023. If you look at, this is just an excerpt that literally just came out from the Commissioner of Education. When you had 29 QSAC reviews completed in the last 2 months, 12 districts scored 80% in all 5 subject areas, passing the review, while 17 failed to meet the 80% in at least one area. Out of the 17, 15 were in the curriculum and instruction. So again, that was only in a 2-month period. They do QSAC reviews all year long. So obviously you can see what's going on here, and that's the reason why they put the changes into play. But regardless of that, and all the work that we're already doing, which we're going to document, we are required to put forward an improvement plan based on the 2022-23 achievement scores for instruction. So we've completed a district improvement plan, or we call it a DIP. We're getting board approval tonight. We will submit this tomorrow morning to the NJDOE. In that process, we have to establish SMART goals. So all we're really going to do is going to be documenting everything that we're already doing that we've showed has resulted in some significant success for us, and we'll hopefully continue to do that. We're going to identify the strategies to meet those requirements. We have to create a timeline and then eventually provide evidence of completion. So the first goal is an ELA, and what we're saying is by the spring diagnostic assessment in June 2025, at least 50% of our students in grades K to 8 will achieve early on grade level or better on iReady diagnostics. So if you were here for the achievement report, you know that the district last year launched iReady. It's a data tool that we're utilizing to literally measure student progress on a weekly basis as we look at the results, and that really does, drive what kids are getting interventions at what time and what frequency, and a very, awesome program that has helped us with our success as far as student achievement. So this just kind of breaks out the strategies that we've already been using and how we're tiering our interventions with tier 1, 2, and 3, depending upon need. We're using our accelerate block and our elementary schedule and our flex block, specifically for grade 7 and 8. And this is just a timeline of when we administered already the baseline diagnostics. So when we got these scores in October, we had already done step 1, regardless of whether we needed to do an improvement plan or not. We did a baseline October to January. We're working through our interventions based on student results on the baselines. We'll do another mid-year coming up after the winter break. We'll review that data, obviously provide interventions. It's a very fluid process depending upon what students need. And then we will do another end of the year diagnostic and then eventually submit those results to the state as part of our improvement plan. Similar approach in math. So same thing with the iReady, same kind of breakdown. And then in science as well. However, in science, we'll be using benchmarks that we've developed Keeping in mind that for science, it's not every year. Students are only assessed in grades 5, 8, and 11, not like in ELA and math. So something similar, but besides iReady, we'll be using our district benchmark scores of 80% or above will be our goal. So that is our dip. Okay, moving along, preschool update. So if you remember, we talked probably 2 board meetings ago. One of the last pieces of the puzzle is we were waiting to hear back from St. John's. We had visited St. John's. If those that remember, we used obviously St. John's last year to put LPS in for the year while our renovation was taking place. So we met with St. John's in early October and said, hey, if we wanted to bring our preschool program and utilize your space, what would the rent be in order to utilize your space? So we just recently got back to terms, and they would be charging us $291,000 for a school year to utilize their facility, with a 3% increase for each year of a 5-year lease. That would not include utilities, so we would be responsible for that. And they kind of lay out the spaces we'd be using for our preschool classes, as well as the multi-purpose room, playground outside. And so that is the number, $291,000 per year to rent that location. All right, let's talk about 5A. So a lot's happening. If you didn't see the pictures that I had shared on social media within the last couple of days, the building is now watertight as the majority of the roof work has been completed. And that's a great thing as we approach December. JCP&L was on site last week and installed the transformer so we can provide electric service to the building. The majority of the work to be completed is now interior as well as site work around the school. The hope is that the electricity for the building will be up and running the first few weeks of December. This will allow our contractor to heat the building for finishes like tile, flooring. The general contractor is really hoping to be done their portion by the end of February. And then we have many subs that will be coming in, folks that we've contracted with outside of the general contractor to come in and complete flooring in all the classrooms, hallways, offices, cafeteria, the wood floor in the gym, install bleachers and baskets in the gym, all of our security for the building, technology for the building, and then the last thing is the furniture. So I anticipate, although the general contractor may be done their part by the end of February, we'll have folks coming in and out probably into early summer, finishing off the project. At some point in the coming weeks, our contractor will begin the softball field, which is the new varsity softball field, which is part of the middle school project. So you'll start to see some things moving around and a lot of equipment leaving the site to start creating space. And then the softball field will begin. I'll share more of an update on the softball field, some other things in our December meeting in reference to athletic field expansion. The only thing that we're waiting on, it's been challenging, is the septic system approval. We have not received yet the final approval. So, if you're familiar with DEP, we originally submitted everything in August of 2022, and we are still going through the process. It's a 3-stage process. We've gotten permits for the first 2 stages. The last stage is what's called a treatment works application at TWA. It's been submitted. It's in review, technical review, as they call it. So we're hoping to get that back as soon as possible because we can't order all of our septic equipment that needs to be installed until we get back that review. So that's the last piece of the puzzle that we're waiting for. But everything else has been moving great. Our contractors had an army of folks on site each and every day. And again, if you haven't seen it, just looking at the building. So you can see this is the front entrance. You see paving's already gone down. Obviously, the roofing is just about complete other than trim around the edges. HVAC units are going on top. This is the back of the building, cafeteria, windows that will be going in. The majority of the windows in the addition are all sealed and tight. You can see here again, there'll be another parking area that will be in here eventually once they're done with the site work. But we're really making awesome progress and on schedule. The fact that other than last week, it hadn't rained in like 3.5 months, wasn't good for everyone else, but was good for our contractors because obviously they weren't dealing with a wet site, for throughout the summer and the fall. So, and then just what's on tap. So we're working on finalizing our 5/8 schedule. This will be shared with the board and the community in the coming months. And we will be holding parent nights in the spring for our parents of 4th through 7th graders. Obviously for our, 4th grade parents coming into 5th grade, and then obviously for our, 5th, 6th, and 7th grade parents, because there will be a new schedule. There'll be all kinds of different elective opportunities. We want to talk about our extracurricular activities, sports that will be available to students now, starting in 6th grade, all of our club information that will be available to students in 5th through 8th grade. We'll kind of lay all that out. And then eventually students will be making course selections more if they're in the upper grades, in 7th and 8th grade, compared to 5th and 6th grade, but we'll share more details what that's going to look like. Keeping in mind that the goal of middle school is exploration, right? To have students have the opportunity to experiment and try a lot of different things. So hopefully by the time they get into 9th grade, they have kind of an idea of what they want to maybe focus and maybe a path that they want to take. That is it.
Okay, any questions from the board?
I have a question.
Yeah.
With regard to the iReady diagnostic assessment, is it, I know that we're looking at results of 50% or better at the end of the year after having done the assessment at the beginning of the year. And I guess my question is, I know we saw data the other week, but I'm trying to keep all the terminology straight. Was that the same data that we're talking about here in terms of the initial assessment? Because I'm trying to
For the
understand.
achievement report?
Yeah.
No, that was based on the spring of 2024
Right,
state
okay.
testing report.
Yep.
Correct.
Because
But you will see, so if you recall, we did commit to doing data reports throughout the year. So I'm anticipating that our next one will be in January, and that will be specifically on internal iReady and some other benchmarks that we're utilizing, nothing to do with the state.
So there'll be data updates on the iReady, and where we're at in terms of meeting the
Yep.
50% goal.
Yep.
Okay, that's my first question about that. I wanted to ask in terms of and I apologize for missing a subcommittee meeting, so. But in terms of the cost of the school at St. John's, I assume that we took a bigger space for the elementary school portion. What was that rent that we paid at that?
470.
That's all.
The plan here is for K-8, but did the math scores for algebra did not get factored into QSEP?
I don't believe so, no. The plan is for K-8 for the dip, but the high school was not impacted as far as being part of that plan. Nope.
And then for one thing, just not.
Sorry, before you go on. Do you mean that the 8th grade algebra isn't included?
For the dip.
Yeah.
Yeah, being not included, so we're looking at any 8th grader is doing iReady, so all 7th and 8th grade are doing iReady during their class as well as in their math classes, and part of the, so yes, if your child is an 8th grader, they are part of the iReady.
Whether they're in algebra or pre-algebra?
Yes,
correct.
yes,
Okay.
yeah, and it's level, it's for personalized learning as well as aligned to their instruction.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, because I thought our geometry, there was some test I thought I remember seeing in the achievement report at the high school level that seemed like it could benefit from being a part of this as well. But also for 7th and 8th grade, so I know for our elementary school at parent teacher conference gave information. Are we able to communicate that same type of information to parents for 7th and 8th grade? Like, do parents know their student is one of these students that we really need to like push to get up? Are parents getting that?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, so the first diagnostic that we gave in September was really just a baseline because we were all brand new. Now leading up into the January diagnostic, there will be a lot more communication. I don't know that we'll go as far as a pep rally, but there will be a lot of communication, conversations. I've already met with principals, even though it's still November, to start to talk about how can we prepare students and teachers in the month of December, letting them know why it's important, all of those things that we didn't get in September. So there will be a lot of different communication with the students so they understand some test taking strategies, all of that in preparation for January.
And then my last question was, I think in science, we talk about, it's 80% or better on district science growth objectives.
Yep, it's an internal benchmark that we've written for administering for all course.
On course.
So,
Question. Just so I understand, so the CUSAC, does it only look at K through 8th grade? Or were they looking at K through 12th grade?
they look at both, but based on the scoring that they utilize, that's where they identified where we had to do the improvement plan. Doesn't mean, yeah, it doesn't mean that we're still not working on, like when we talked about in our achievement report, some of the areas in high school math. We just don't have to document it as part of the plan to submit to the county.
The fifth is consistent with the district goal.
Correct. Correct.
Tony,
Everything that we have in the DIP, we were already doing. We just put it on paper, quite honestly.
for K through 8.
K through 8, but we're also doing different interventions for the high school. So even though we don't include it in the DIP, we're still doing it.
Right. So the state essentially comes back to us and says, you didn't meet instruction and programming for your NJSLA, ELA math and science scores. You need to do something about it
For K through 12.
for you, all of your scores. So there's not 12th graders aren't tested because once you get to the high school, there's subject area test. So geometry, English 11. So then we say, okay, where can we do the most impact and where can we have the most effect to raise our achievement scores? So that's where we've adopted, just like we did with the high impact tutoring. We didn't open it up to everyone. We only opened it up to a small number of students. And so by using iReady, and iReady only goes up to 8th grade. And so that's why we're also using iExcel in 9th grade, and 10th grade, and 11th grade. We're using it in science. We're also using the Common Lit benchmarks. So even though we're not reporting out to the state in our district improvement plan, we have implemented a lot of different interventions as we move through this year.
Okay. Will the and hopeful potential improvements in high school also be made available?
Sure, absolutely. When I report out on all the data, I'll be able to say, okay, this was our benchmark scores in the fall. Here are our benchmark scores in January, and here's where they'll be in the spring.
The timeline, so we submit the DIP and they approve it or ask for revisions, and then there's another QSAC review. What's the?
No, they'll come, like, they'll check in with us periodically throughout the year, and then eventually we'll have to submit it at the end of the year as part of what I just shared.
Okay.
But as I mentioned before, the irony of all this, because of the timing of the county, in essence, with the growth that we made in the spring of 2024, we've kind of already met the requirement. But unfortunately, the county doesn't work that way because they didn't evaluate us during that time. They evaluated us before that. So we still have to do it.
So we have to spend energy reporting out to the county, but we're trying to, I presume, make everything somewhat consistent in terms of the improvements. We're not, what I hear you saying is that we're not going to try to do improvements for this testing and requirement over here, and then a different type over here, but instead trying to say, here are the general improvements we've been focusing on. And
We want all of our kids to grow. That's the goal.
right.
Right? I
Well,
think we proved that last spring,
yeah,
but unfortunately, I can't go back to the county and say, hey, I know you looked at 23 scores, 24, look what we did. It's apples and oranges to them.
right.
So unfortunately, for us, it's just something we need to do to be
Right.
compliant.
Right.
But the reality is we're focused on all kids growing.
No, of course.
There's also the frustration of in 2023, the science test didn't align with the standards. So many across the state, there were lower scores. So it's like,
Quite honestly, the scores on the science test are what put us in 79%. If it wasn't for that, we would have been over 79%.
So if our science scores were in line with our math and ELA, like,
No, we scored in 23, our science scores were low. We did a lot better in 24,
right,
but if we had scored a little bit better in science, we would have hit the 80%.
cool. Couldn't you say that about math or ELA?
Yeah,
too?
I mean, but
Like,
I'm just saying
it's just-
they
it's
were,
saying we could do
yeah.
a little better.
Correct.
Right.
we could
across
do
the-
better at everything.
Yeah.
I said that, we have not solved the puzzle, right?
Right.
We're continuing to work as hard as we possibly can to improve our achievement. We're
Right.
making great progress. It's
So
just
when
we're in
they
this unique
switch to
spot.
this growth thing, are they looking at the numbers of growth in terms of you had this many kids not meeting expectation and now this many are meeting expectation? Or are they looking at like you have some kids showing some improvement?
They're looking at cohorts of kids and where they're going from 6th grade to 7th and how much progress they're making compared to like peers throughout the state taking the same test. And if you click on that link there, it will give you can read a little bit more in detail. The changes.
Okay, both the presentation you did earlier, as well as this presentation will be emailed out.
Correct.
Because you, in both of them, you've mentioned there's a link that you can click on. So
Correct.
that will be emailed tomorrow after the board. I'll just say the one thing about QSAC is that they do it every 3 to 5 years. Everybody has to go through it. So we will get another shot at it. And hopefully the changes that we make today will put us in a better position for next time. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, can I just ask, what else is looked at in the instruction and program?
Curriculum, which we scored 100% on.
Okay, just whether or not you're. following
Everything's
state
up to
standards.
date, align the standards. When you've done program reviews, we pass with flying colors for that.
We have specific things for fiscal management. Like I said, that was one of our next lower things. Is there anything like, what goes into that?
About a 47-page document. I'll share with you if you want to look at. I think to keep that document, what, 187
No, I
pages?
mean like broad strokes. I just noticed it because it was our next lowest thing. And I was just wondering if there were, just talking about that, obviously we talked about test scores and. But I didn't know if there was anything that we did could we do anything different or should be doing different. That was just a term that stuck out to me.
We could follow up with you on that.
I think
Yeah.
as well, because,
Like-
we do have an annual audit for our budgets, and our auditors have consistently come back and said you are doing everything right, following, whatever the standards are.
I think an
So-
88 is pretty good though.
But that's,
I mean, 88 is pretty good.
we don't know why they take, so I'm kind of curious as well.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, why isn't it 100? Like, just- Because that's the question.
But then when it's,
It's
the way
just-
the QSAC is set up, they don't want you to go.
88, that's what I asked.
All
Was
right.
it wrong?
I'll bring you over to my house.
No. Just to know, so that, and that's, I'll explain it to my kids too, like, we'll go back and learn what we didn't. learn,
Right.
Right?
So it would be good to do some self-reflection on. Without any other questions from the board? Good. Okay. Well, in that case, thank you, Mr. Suzo, and that will come to the first period of public comment. So this is open to anything that you want to bring before the board. Again, I would ask you to try to keep your remarks to 3 minutes, address the board. If it's a question that we can answer this evening, we will try to answer it. If it's not a question that we feel comfortable answering this evening, we will get back to you then. So with that, public comment is open. I would just ask you to come up to the podium, give us your name and where you're from. Does anyone have something to bring to the board? What?
Hi, my name is Christopher Beekman, West Hamilton Township. I just have some concerns about the transportation of our students. Looks to me that when I looked at some of the data, the students only had 2 buses that passed the state inspection. That means that we only had a 6% passer rating. I think that's a big problem with them being failed for rotors, brakes, egresses. Doesn't look very good, on our end as our buses, in our community. Other problems I've noticed with our transportation would be my son the other day, 11/20/24, bus broke down, common thing. But when he got another bus, which I don't know why we don't have a spare bus, but we have a driver without a bus that can't get my son home, and, at a reasonable time. It was 15 minutes later than he normally is at. The other problem with that bus is when it comes to the stop, the what do you call not the crossing arm, not the stoplight, is not working. It's been 3 days, and I'm just wondering, like, is a pre-trip done? Like, who are we holding accountable for stuff like this? This seems, if you go back, it's been like this for like 10 years. That's very concerning, in my opinion. And that's just what I wanted to bring up. I also wanted to bring up, like, what is our plan for 4 schools busing? We don't even have enough buses to do the 3 schools that we're doing now. Yet we're going to do more busing, have more miles on our bus, and we can't even get the maintenance done on our buses now. So I'm a little lost, and it just seems like it's like an overshot. No one's really thinking about it, and it's very, very concerning. We got a lot of hills around here. And brake lines, with all confidentiality, taken out. I've been under your buses. 3 years ago, I used to inspect your buses. Your buses are in terrible shape. At first I didn't want to put my son on the busing, but he loves it so much. We had a newer bus last year. I checked the ratings on that bus. We were good for, they get inspected twice a year. So those were, 2 good times, but then we end up with, a crappy bus that has broken down at least 4 times this year. 2 times my son has been let off at the wrong house without a adult outside. He is 6. So he's in kindergarten, or he's in 1st grade. He's not allowed to be let off. And one time he went behind the bus. The driver let him behind the bus, which is obviously a no-go, past my house. And the other time was before him. And then he gets out and he goes up around. It's, there's a lot of safety. I mean, Abigail law, all that stuff came into effect for a lot of reasons. And it just doesn't seem like we might be doing well with, certain things with, with everything else, but it just seems like this is a really big oversight. And I'm not saying, anything bad about anybody, but, somebody needs to be held accountable at this point. I just think it's a little, kind of redundant. 10 years is a long time. I haven't gone back further, but you can, it's all public information. So just wanted to bring that to your guys' attention.
All right, thank you for doing it. Anyone else have something they'd like to bring before?
Hello, my name is Andrea Little from West Amwell Township. Last month, I had asked if we could please I'll get right to it because I have 2 minutes. We could put the choice students on the enrollment document. I saw that this week it was not done. I'm hoping for December it could be done. And going forward, I think it's just really good insight as we're looking at our facilities and the number of students at each of the facilities and at what grade level, just for data. I'd also like to know when the public will learn when you intend to start talking about the options for pre-K and if you're going to be, combining them at the elementary school where it was intended. This has been a 3-year in the making program, and we don't really know where we stand. We were, again, promised that we were going to have a 3-school operation, not a 4. I'd like to understand that reconfiguration, whether you're going to change the academic buildings by grade, which sounds like you're really not, because you kept talking about in the superintendent report, Mr. Susan, you kept mentioning grades 5 through 8 schools. So it sounds to me like that decision's already been made without that vote. And Also, I've spoken with several people in the community. There's a lot of concern about having West Stanwell as a school only because it was knocked down in 2021. It's not being sustainable, and they're concerned about having, you know, buildings, busing 4 buildings, the expenses of 4 buildings, and knowing that, like, if we could just get the data together to understand, like, what really is, like, we know that there's a budget, what the state gives for the preschool program. Like, let's look at the scenarios and let's see, like, if you're going to have your 3 buildings, your 4 buildings, or your 3 buildings plus, you know, St. John. Let's understand, like, what are all the dotted lines are to come to a fiscal, you know, conversation. Of course, academics is important too, into the process, but we know that we are still a very small district. We know basically that we need 6 classrooms for preschool. And we also know that this school is really serviced as a blue ribbon school for grades 7 through 12. You know, is that still an option to sustain 3 buildings? And then I too have a question about that fiscal management, an 88 B score. Hopefully the public can also get record of that. If you could put that online, I think that would be really just great insight for all of us. And because we really need to understand where our fiscal responsibilities lie as you are now going to endeavor a new grounds and transportation. Thank you very much. Have a good evening.
Yeah, real quick, I'll just respond. Just in reference to the preschool. So if you remember, our plan was to have the community sessions, which we had one in September and 2 in October. The board has an upcoming work session that will be kind of taking a look at the feedback that we got at those community sessions. If you remember the slide decks, which are all available on their latest news, it does kind of lay out fiscally what the different options would entail from the district side of things. That information is available. All 3 presentations, all 3 recordings is available on our website. If you haven't had a chance to take a look at the slide deck, or if you want to listen to one of the recordings or all of them, they're all available. So the hope would be, you know, we would come back probably in January to have some kind of an idea of next steps and what direction we're going.
Jamie Legg, West Amwell. So the goal of education should be obviously to educate, right? So whether it's just in our district, whether it's statewide, wherever, that should be the paramount thing. And thankfully, we do have the standardized testing and just all that data to see where do we stand. And after what you just showed us here, like I just don't know where your heads are as far as what you consider as quality education. And I would submit to all of you, and I think that many members of this community would agree with me, that the education in especially this district, it is just not very good. It just isn't. It's subpar. If you just go out there and Google it, just go out there. If you're moving into this community and you look at this school district, it's terrible. It's really bad. It affects everyone that lives in this township and the wealth that we have, right? So just to give you some numbers, so I actually brought the most recent ones, which Sonia, I think you said that this isn't even, I think, counted in the numbers that you said gets us that 80% number. But I have because I have 3 in the district, I have 2 of them. So just to go over where we are, and you're considering this improvement, I mean, yes, it's an improvement, but it's still abysmal and from my perspective. So just so everyone in the room understands, so to give you the rubric or the scoring, it's scored from 100 to 300. And I'm talking about the NJSLA science portion, and this is for grade 11. So from 100 to 300. Now we did, as a school in a district, score above the state average, which was 169. We were just a little bit above that by 5.9%, scoring a 179 out of 300. If that's where we think is the level of success, I mean, I don't understand why that's the measurement of we've succeeded. That's not very good. At the same token, at grade 8, so same spring 2024, same rubric, state average was 164. Yes, we did score 4.8% higher. The school and district average was 172. but that's still abysmal. The number of students that statewide performed at level 1 and level 2, 45% and 27%. At grade 8, level 1 and level 2, 36% and 45%. That's the vast majority of kids. So especially in this district, if you take out just a couple of the top performers, guess what happens to our numbers as a district? Those bottom numbers go up precipitously. Like, they accelerate. Precipitous means coming down actually. But you get what I'm saying. So I don't understand why we continue to spend money as a district. The referendum was not a good deal for West Stanwell. It is what it is. We have these buildings, it's under construction, we can't go back and change it. But we're spending all this money, now the pre-K program, throwing all of that in there. And yet the bottom line, the whole focus and the crux of education is what's the return on investment, right? Like what is the point behind why are we spending these dollars and why and how are we attracting people to our district, right? When our scores are suggesting that we are not improving. I understand my 3 minutes is up, but you guys get the point. I'm not trying to beat you up, but
We'll have another public comment period, and you're welcome to continue the thought. Thank you for bringing it forward.
thank you.
Does anyone else have something they'd like to bring in? Can I say something? You may. I will.
So I understand your perspective, but I don't want to take away, our teachers have been working their tails off. And the reality is we have seen improvement. I would caution you to Google districts because you're probably looking at test results that are 3 or 4 years old. When you look at rate your districts and things along those lines. We have work to be done, but we're heading in the right direction. And I just want our teachers to know that from our perspective, they're working their tails off and we're seeing progress. And I think that's important for them to hear.
But it's not reflected in the score.
It is. You're interpreting in the way you want to interpret them.
Okay, in any case, all right, we're not gonna have a conversation right now. We can talk about this privately after the meeting, when we'll have another public comment period, and you're welcome to come up and speak. But does anyone else have something they would like to bring before? Seeing nobody, do we have any online comments?
We do not.
All right, then I'm going to close this first period of public comment and many reports. Starting with buildings and grounds. Kevin, I'll let you make a report. Sorry, I didn't mean to put it on.
All right.
Forgot that was first. So Mr. Souza talked about a lot of the stuff we talked about in our preschool update and our building update. I'm not going to re-mention them. Just the other couple of things to note. We had to approve some payments for the middle school. We had to approve some annual contracts. We also, the quote on there for the sod installation for the softball field, which is part of the 5A project, is on there. A quote for all the security for the 5A building is on there, card readers, cameras, software, etc., as we're getting closer. Also from our scoreboard dealer, 2 scoreboards for one for the new softball field, which is the solar power scoreboard, and that's also part of the 5A project. And we'll also be submitting our preschool expansion aid application for 25-26. We have made the decision, we only have 5 sections. And I believe, unless there's anything else, anything needs to be mentioned, I think you covered a lot of stuff in the preschool and building update. Yep. So with that, I'd like to make a motion. Approve items A through, how many are there? A through O. A through O.
Second.
Second by Aaron, thank you. Any discussion on items A through L? Anyone have any questions?
In the contract, in the contracts list, I thought I saw something that said pay tutor.
Correct.
It's not the one you research. It's different. We're going
No, I know, but is it along the line? Like
Yeah.
it's different, but
So it's curriculum that we're going to actually use as part of the high impact tutoring. I did research yours and actually met with them, and I can share with you kind of numbers.
I would say, hey, tutor is grant covered. Did I get that right?
Yes, that's
Okay.
part of the high impact tutoring grant, correct?
In the preschool plan, I just noticed, it just struck my eye that it says that we don't accept Title I funds for only for preschool, but we get them for a district. Is that right? Is there any like, is there anything different about preschool for Title I versus, or I don't, it was just out of curiosity, I don't really
Not to
know.
my knowledge, I'll double check to be sure. I will say that we do maximize our Title I funds in other areas.
Yeah.
As we have the preschool expansion need, we've never sought
Because,
to.
okay, that's what I was wondering, because I know we had said it, we maximize Title I.
It is also possible, I don't know this, I would speculate, but because our preschool is a mixture of
Right.
special education who we are required to, those students are not eligible for Title I funds because it's a mixed classroom. I don't know.
We do also
But
get
that's-
IDA funds, which addresses.
So we get to, so we get special education funding. But that would be, something for Andrew. Any other questions? I have no questions.
Starting with Jennifer Batchelor,
Yes.
Martha Dennis,
Yes.
Tina Fischetti,
Yes.
Brian Keys. Yes. Kevin Kowalski,
Yes.
Aaron O'Leary,
Yes.
Michael Strauss.
Yes.
Ronnie Tom Marino.
Yeah.
Tim Galvin.
Yes. Let's see. Personnel committee.
Yes. My phone locked and I changed my password. I remember. Okay. So the Personnel Committee met on November 20th. We met virtually. And at that meeting, we reviewed the superintendent's recommendations for appointments, resignations, transfers, and adjustments, as well as recommendations for mentors for the 2024-2025 school year. And additionally, we reviewed the recommendations for extracurricular stipend appointments for the 24-25 school.
So, let's see, so we do need to make a motion.
Yes.
For these items A and B. Okay, thank you for making the motion. And we'll need a second then. Second by Jen, thank you. Any discussion on items A and B?
Starting with Martha Dennis,
Yes.
Tina Fischetti,
Yes.
Brian Keys. Yes. Kevin Kowalski,
Yes.
Aaron O'Leary,
Yes.
Michael Strauss.
Yes.
Jennifer Batchelor,
Yes.
Ronnie Tom Marino,
Yes.
Tim Galvin.
Yes. Curriculum, technology.
So curriculum and technology met Wednesday, November 13th in the library. Vince provided a technology update. So the lease for our laptops are up in December. And after evaluating options, it's believed that it's cheaper to purchase these now than to lease these for another 6 to 12 months and then have to go back and look at purchasing them after that time. Jane Ellen discussed on the high impact tutoring program. We talked about, so we're moving forward to heytutor.com is just. There'll be one teacher for 5th and 6th grade. And then somebody, an outside person would be trained and paired with their teacher. And again, that's paid for via grant. Tony discussed with us the CUSAC, the scores and the district improvement plan during our meeting. And finally, we talked about the gifted and talented parent focus committee. And again, I know a form was sent out to parents to participate. And I think a second one was as well. Through Parent Square. So that's all I have. And I guess so we have up for motion, up for approval.
Yep.
District approval plan.
I'm making the motion to.
I'm making a motion to
approve
approve.
the district approval plan, which was go for this over.
This is the first time all year I've had to
Something to
actually move something in curriculum.
So
So
this is makes a circle of state on it. But
that'd be- Thanks.
And could I have a second, please? I got a second from Michael, thank you. Any discussion on the district? Questions?
Regina Pichetti,
Yes.
Brian Keys,
Yes.
Kevin Covalessi,
Yes.
Aaron O'Leary,
Yes.
Michael Stroud,
Yes.
Jennifer Batchel,
Yes.
Martha Dennis.
Yeah.
Ronnie Todd Marino.
Yeah.
Jim Gallagher.
Yes. Policy.
Yes, we met on November 12th. We have two items for the first read, both related to attendance, the policy 5200 and the corresponding regulation. It's a mandated change. It's related to the addition of attendance at civic events being excused absences, but the committee did review the policy and regulation in totality to see if there are any changes. With that in mind, we do recommending to replace natural parent with biological parent in the policy and regulation. Specific to our discussion around the regulation, we did clarify that the district's interpretation of written notice includes notice by email, for retaining the list of excused absences for funerals for people who are not family members or those who are related by birth. We clarified that the principal will have the discretion as to whether or not an absence will be excused. We retained that unexcused tardiness may be constitute an unexcused absence. And we did retain that if the student has been out for 3 consecutive days, the parent may be required to provide a written statement listing the reasons. For teachers, when you have the requirement for instruction, we clarified that teachers will prepare home assignments for significant excused absences, but not required to do so for unexcused absences like a family ski trip. That doesn't mean somebody can't make up work, but it's upon them to make sure that they're finding out what that is. And we retained the current, what's currently in the policy regarding the denial of course credit. For the, I ask if there are any questions on that. Any questions on the two items?
Can you repeat what you said about tardiness?
So, so tardiness, unexcused tardiness may constitute an unexcused absence.
After like being like late so many times.
Correct, correct. And then we have 4 items for our second read. They all relate to physical examination. As we talked last time, of the optional tests that are available, the district does require a 12-panel drug test, which includes marijuana. We had requested if we could see whether or not that information could be removed, as it is no longer illegal. And the district has excluded related drug panel information from the results. And with that, I'd like to move those 4 items for.
So moved. I have a second.
Second.
Second by Kevin, thank you very much. Any discussion on the policies and the regulations? So these were on the first reading.
And second.
These are the second.
Second.
Okay.
Second, but physical.
So physical education, second. Yep. So we will go in the vote, the other one. I'm beginning to look at between now and then. Any other comments or discussion? Let's vote.
Brian Keys,
Yes.
Kevin Covalessi,
Yes.
Aaron O'Leary,
Yes.
Michael Stroud,
Yes.
Jennifer Batchel,
Yes.
Martha Dennis,
Yes.
Tina Pichetti,
Yes.
Ronnie Todd Marino.
Yeah.
Jim Gallagher.
Yes.
Okay, school and community met on November 19th. We finished up our discussion about students in the families who live in the district, but opt to have their students attend another school. And we discussed the financial impact and the potential impact on test scores for that, including the expansion of the Polytech program. And we went over some policies on the choice program. But one thing also we, in the past, there was a one-time survey to ask families why their children are choosing to send their children to a different school. Now that survey will be completed at every exit for each family, so we can identify patterns. We also reviewed the CUBESAC report, which I won't go into again. And we took a look at the strategic plan and action plan as we're a year into a 5-year plan. We're starting to look at where we are and what we've achieved and what are the things that are come coming up soon, and each committee should probably take a look at the subject areas that are scientific. And that's it.
Okay. So let's see, information items. We don't have a good report for this month. We did do fire and safety drills. Things listed in the agenda there. According to the state law. So that brings us to, district enrollment. As the enrollment sheet is posted. On the website, the agenda, and the other document meeting. So that does bring us to the second period of public comment. So once again, please come up. And let me know what you think.
Restart it. Just kidding. So not to belabor the comment, but and to keep it more succinct. So I guess the whole point is what are we doing, or what is the plan? I mean, it's a, you know, you guys have the DIP, process or whatever, but that to me in the private sector means I'm one step from being fired. If I'm on like a development plan to improve, that means I'm not doing my job and I probably need to look for another one. So when you have these percentages of students, and these are statewide numbers, but we're not far from these statewide numbers, 36 and 45. So, you're looking at, 81% that fall into those two categories, which by definition are below proficient or nearing proficiency, with the vast majority and below proficient. Why are we measuring and aiming towards what the state is setting at the standard when we're not even coming, we're not even there? Like, so what are we doing to address those vast majority of students that are falling behind, are significantly behind? What is the plan of action to bring up those kids that need it the most? Like, let the top performers do their thing. They're obviously doing well. Like, they're not the ones that need the help. It's the other ones. What are we doing for that? And why are we spending money as taxpayers for schools that, from the measurement by the state standards, we're not even hitting? That's the bottom line. So I think you guys get the point. And Tony, it starts with you.
Thank you for your comment.
Andrea Little, West Danwell. I'm going to go back to, I appreciate that you were able to give a comment after my last 3 minutes, but I will respectfully disagree. The presentations did not give a line by line item of the different scenarios to be able to really make a thorough decision on next steps for next year. Again, this has been since 2021. We're very well aware that we need these classrooms, but we should be able to understand, like, we understand that we have a preschool program and that there's an academic function to that, and that was very clear. But we don't know what it costs to bring our pre-K back into LPS. We don't know what it costs to have the St. John, now that you have that number, and we don't know what it costs to have a fourth building. And then that return of that building and what that was doing back to the taxpayers, which was approved, like that was part of the plan when the referendum was put out there. People thought that that was going to be a sale back to them. So regardless if we have 3 buildings or 4 buildings, academics is of course incredibly important, but 2 things about being a district and when we regionalize was improve scholastically, which we have not done. We know that. Don't pay attention to numbers, but we were an 8, now we're a 2. We were a blue ribbon school, we're not, things like that. And we have amazing teachers, and it's not that. It's really comes from top, how like maybe they're being mentored, and rather see money being put out there that maybe there's someone in charge of history, and then that person then cultivates the history program and someone's math, and so on and so on. So like there are ways around that, but the fact is that we have not managed ourselves fiscally And that's why I think the entire district needs to understand what that means. And I think that everyone on the board here needs to know what it means by having the different scenarios of where the schools are and how much, what happens to the infrastructure of having 4 schools versus 3. And are we expecting that our numbers are going to, climb to what level? I don't know, because within the attendance, which again, I super appreciated that you started putting that out there. We should be actually looking at not just choice students, but we should also be looking at kids that are actually leaving the district and putting those numbers in there, because then we could say, hey, are we seeing an improvement there from year over year? Again, as a community, can we all be involved to help support our school? Because that's why I come here every month, is because I do want to support our district, our community, our educational standards. And then last but not least, for transportation next month, if you could please, as the head of buildings and grounds, potentially bring up the whole busing that was brought up tonight. I think that would be really relevant for us to understand, the state of our buses. I know you have something on the docket about buying a bus, but like, what is the status of our safety? Because safety is number one. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for your comment. Any other comments from the public? Else they'd like to-
I'm gonna make one more comment. You did come up with the standard, and I think
Can do.
it's something that's a suggestion. But I'm thinking about.
Wow.
It's about solution, right?
All right.
So, you guys all.
Why don't you know what? How about can we talk about your suggestion after the meeting? Or can I? And okay, well,
I can take the stand if you want.
well, typically allow you to do one public comment per period. So
Really?
go ahead.
Take your call.
No, it is not the law.
All right.
It is our practice.
No, so listen,
But
so I'm not trying to beat everyone up. Like, I'm just trying to acknowledge real inefficiencies and problems within the district from an educational perspective. So what can we do to fix it? So obviously what's been done in the past is not working, right? We're making some improvements, but not vastly. So I have 3 kids. 2 of them are very good students. One of them is not. He doesn't like school. But there is one teacher in particular, and I'm just going to throw his name out there, and I'm sorry if this is whatever, but no, it's a good thing. No, listen.
Not be throwing any teachers' names out there.
No, this is a good thing. I'm going to say it anyway, Joe. Mr. Holland, he's a math teacher at South at the high school. Whatever that guy is doing is wildly successful as far as how the students react to him and how they learn. Because I have 3 different kids that have 3 different personalities and characteristics in how they learn. And the one that struggles the most, whatever Mr. Hollinan is doing, just really connects with one of my kids. So maybe something that you could do as a suggestion is look at these top performing teachers and assess what are they doing differently than other teachers, and how do we replicate that or hire teachers that can be replicated in some sense. Like, I'm just saying something, like there's got to be something that changes. We can't keep doing the same thing and expecting a different result, right? Like we got to do something different. So maybe try to pull from the best talent that you have and try to learn from what these great educators that we do have, because there are many. I do agree with that. So how can we pull from those? Miss LaBelle is another one. Fantastic teacher. So just trying to, from a personnel perspective, you guys have that as one of the rubric things. I really think it comes down to that. And that's, I think that's a vital piece that's missing in the district. So just a suggestion. It wasn't
your suggestion. I appreciate it.
All right, thanks.
Are there anyone else who would like to make a public comment? Do we have any public comment from? We do not. So with that, I'm going to close the period of public comment. We have need for we do have need for an executive session. So we will be going into executive session. We will take a 5-minute recess before that, and then we will meet in our usual spot. We expect that executive session will take no more than 15 to 20 minutes. You're welcome to wait with no action. We cannot anticipate taking any action when we return. So with that, the motion going to executive session at 8:31. So moved by Jen, need a second? Second by Martha, all in favor? Aye.